Hello, so I just want to do a quick overview of the OKR Writing Toolkit. And down below, the first section we have here is for people who might not know what OKRs are. So if you're on a team and people really don't know what OKRs are, you can send them this video. And I've included some links to some literature. One of them is a free PDF explaining what OKRs are for beginners, and one is a link to a copy of the Measure What Matters book by John Doerr, which is kind of the OKR Bible. But here, in this part one section here, we have the OKR Writing Cheat Sheet. And the idea here is you can print this out and take this into your OKR planning meeting. This again is just to make sure that everyone gets on the same page. The number one problem that I've seen with OKRs is that people really don't know what they are or how they're supposed to be written. And if you wanted to see a quick view, I've included that here. And here is just a brief explanation about what objectives are, key results are, and what types of OKRs there are, and then some classic mistakes. And the idea is you print this out double-sided, bring this into your OKR planning meeting, and this is just a way to keep everybody honest so they don't make some of these classic mistakes with OKR writing. Then we have sort of the general, or the most important part, I guess you could say the meat and potatoes of this template. And the reason I call it taxonomical, I guess if you don't like that word, you can easily change it. Okay, so I just needed to pause for a moment. I'm recording this a few days after recording the initial video, and I noticed as I was editing the original video, a couple things. Firstly, I did not realize that my Grammarly plugin was active, so please excuse the colored lines throughout the video. The next thing I wanted to mention was the choice of the word taxonomical. Initially, I was choosing the word taxonomical as opposed to hierarchical, and now I realize that the word taxonomic is probably better, so I updated that in the template. And then I don't think I did a great job of explaining why I chose the term taxonomic. One of the things that John Doerr mentions in Measure What Matters is that about 50% of OKRs should be top-down. The high-level objectives from the organizational level and the departmental level should inform the OKRs at the team level, 50%. And then there should be 50% bottom-up. That means objectives and key results that the teams or the individuals themselves choose because they want to do them. And that's why I chose the term taxonomic, because if you look at this taxonomic diagram that I generated really quickly in ChatGPT, what you'll see is that this obviously moves left to right, but everything here is logically grouped together. However, as you go further down, while each of these categories, each of these groupings are clearly related to one another and informed by what came before, at the lowest level, you will see that there are certain features or characteristics that are not informed by anything that came before, that these characteristics and features are entirely unique to this one individual part. And so I see top-down OKRs as something that ensures alignment with the broader mission of the company and the organization, and bottom-up OKRs as basically an expression of the uniqueness and the individuality of that team. And that's why both are important. And given this sort of mix between inherited characteristics and purely unique characteristics, OKRs are not hierarchical in structure, rather they are taxonomic in structure, hence the term taxonomic OKR tree. So again, if you don't like it, you can just change it. And I just like to say one more time, I apologize for the Grammarly plugin. Here, I've consolidated everything into buttons so that if you want to take this template, you can just click this and it will reproduce everything in here. And we have OKRs at an org level and an individual level. These are very similar, but not exactly the same. And then here we have our OKR template. It's recommended, again, by John Doerr that you have about anywhere between 3 and 5 OKRs. And if you don't end up using all of these, you can easily select this here and just delete it. For any unused OKRs, I'll just leave that here. And again, I've just included in here some tips for writing these OKRs and how to archive them when you're done. Here, also included in this, again, this is why it's called taxonomical OKR tree, is you have yearly OKRs detailed here, and then when you scroll down, you already have all 4 quarters for the year contained right below those yearly OKRs. Twirl that down. Very, very similar in structure. And then here I've included, all 4 quarters are included here. And then what I have seen, you can structure this differently if you'd like to. But in practice, what I have seen is that usually at the organizational level, a company will set yearly and quarterly OKRs, and then teams will typically do their planning. Sometimes teams will do yearly OKRs, but most often I find that the teams I've been on will set goals on a quarterly basis and then break those quarterly goals down into smaller chunks on a monthly basis. So that's how I've structured it here. Again, you could change this if you'd like to. Here, if you have, obviously, most companies have more than one team. So to add a new team, let's just say that this team is engineering. And then you can add a new team. Let's call this one product. So I'm going to use this button here. This might take a minute just because there's a lot of content in here. Okay, and this is still twirling here, but we can just now turn this into, let's call this product. Okay, and if we twirl this down, we'll see, again, similar OKR structure. And within this drop down, you now have your team name, your product team. For January, February, and March for Q1, and all of the months are pre-populated. I've included another button here if you want to, for whatever reason, you need to add in another month or something gets deleted, you can do that. Let's just say, for example, we want to take January's OKRs for the product team, and they don't want to go through all of this every single time. So one of the biggest mistakes that companies make with OKRs is they don't really keep them very visible and easy to find. I find that one of the bigger problems, well, a lot of templates that I find on OKRs are focused mainly on tracking them and kind of measuring the scoring. But really, OKRs are meant to be a communication tool, and it's not very effective if they're not easy to find and visible and easy for everybody to see across the entire organization. So what I've decided to do here is you can scroll on down, and you can, one of the benefits of Notion is linked blocks. You can sync blocks across multiple pages. Say, for example, the product team wants to track their OKRs for January, and they don't want to have to keep coming back to this one centralized page that everyone in the company has access to. Create a new page for the product team. Just say that this is where they track everything. Oops, product team. And let's create a task board for them. And below that, just so they have it at a glance, they will include a synced block to their OKRs. And I don't like how narrow that is, full width. And now they can come in and do their January planning for OKRs. And let's just say that this is key results 1. And this is going to be, let's say it's an aspirational OKR. And when we go back to the company page where everything is centrally located, we go up and this is now updated. So teams can just copy their OKRs or whatever part of this template that they want to look at. Maybe they don't need to keep the company's org level quarterly OKRs or yearly OKRs in view. It is enough for them just to deal with this part that relates only to them on their day-to-day basis and manage it from the product team. I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting your products, your team pages here, but just for the sake of this demo, we're going to do that like that. And so now when they want to do their monthly check-ins or planning, they can do that right here, and they can keep everything here at a glance. The next part of OKRs, not just the writing. Oh, well, just actually very quickly, maybe I can just go into the personal OKRs. Everything that you can do here with the team, you can do for something very similar with an individual. And perhaps you just keep these separate. So everything here, again, is pre-populated. So if a team lead wanted to manage an individual contributor's OKRs, maybe you could create your own separate page for this individual, and they would manage their own OKRs, but you could still copy, for example, the Q1 OKRs of that person. Copy link to block, and then the team lead or the manager could just have a synced version of that block on their page. And so maybe the team lead has a single page where they have everyone's OKRs at a glance that are synced from each of their individual pages that they would manage. So again, that's the power of synced blocks. Next, we have OKR scoring. something that is very important. And this is where I imagine most teams will be spending the majority of their time dealing with their OKRs is in their weekly planning and monthly planning. So, or rather their monthly tracking. Again, here pre-populated is the company end of year retro. I have tried to keep all of the colors relatively consistent so that the yearly is pink, and so the yearly tracking goes with the yearly OKRs. And same with the quarterly at the org level and quarterly OKRs at the team level. And if we twirl this down, every quarter again is populated. Once again, we'll create another team. And once again, what we're going to do is we're going to copy this synced block, and you'll notice here above is a link to Q1 OKR tracking. And so we can come here, paste the link to our OKRs, and that will redirect us down here. But as I mentioned before, we can also sync this block on our team page that we just created for the product team. Sync this block this time, not use the URL. And then, just very quickly, we'll see here that the January tracking, we can also sync here. So let's just copy link to block, link to January OKR tracking. And again, if we go back to the main page, we will see that the OKRs we wrote here have also been updated. So the second the product team updates their template on their team page, it will update on the company-wide OKR page. Again, that's the power of sync blocks that I really, really love. Now we can close this up. And the product team wants to do their January tracking. And so here I've included pre-populated in every individual month 5 weekly check-in templates. Obviously, most months you're only going to have 4, but it is possible that on some months you could divide it up such that you have 5 weeks in a given month, depending on the way they fall, the days of the week fall on the calendar for that given month. So obviously you're not going to need this every single month. So if it's not useful, just delete it and only include the 4. But just for the sake of ease, I've included 5. Your weekly check-in template looks like this. This, I want to give some credit to Todd Henry, and I linked to his book on the main page here. Todd Henry, who wrote the book Herding Tigers, and I took some inspiration from that book about certain rituals that he recommends teams do. And so for your weekly check-in, I've created this template here, a mini State of the Union at the company level or the org level. This is just an opportunity for managers to give their team an overview of everything that's been happening in senior level leadership meetings or decisions that have been made that maybe affect them that they weren't a part of. There are 3 components to every weekly check-in: focus, function, and fire. And so first, the focus is on just a general OKR review, have urgent tasks come up. How are we doing with our WIP limits if you have them? Do our OKR still make sense? And then you can do a scope creep check. Tasks have a way of getting larger as they go on, and a speed check, just making sure if we're still on schedule. And then comes the function. I call this the how check. This is a chance for a team to ask itself, are we blocked anywhere? Why are we blocked? Do we need any additional resources? This is really all but the practical side of getting the job done. And then lastly, and I'd say most importantly, is fire. You do a quick win-loss check. Are you feeling demotivated? Or do we still feel connected to the work? Do we still feel like we're having an impact? What are our wins? And this is a chance, I'm calling this High Five Mondays, but this is also an opportunity for many companies have rituals like this where team members will recognize other members of their team. And it's usually just a really good team building exercise. It's really helpful to do this on Monday, I find, because it kind of sets the tone for the week. And as I'll show you, I created a template for this as well in the bonus section. I'll show you that in a minute. Just before I move on, you have your monthly retro template, and here is where you would do a proper State of the Union, everything that occurred last month, every big decision that was made in the company, how the company is doing with its OKRs. And this is the chance, again, for the team lead to give a 1,000-foot overview for their team about what's happening at the company. And then the state of the team is just where you have a chance to go over how the team performed last month. And you can do your OKR scoring here, have your average score. But yes, this is the template. And if you want to break this out further, I suppose if you want to break this down by individual page, you could create a new, I don't know, week 1, and then just keep your weekly tasks in view. And let's just say, for example, going back to one of the Kanban boards mentioned, the Kanban board I mentioned, let's just say, for example, you want to work on this team objective number 1, and you're going to create a new ticket. And let's just pop this open, and we're going to link to this. We're going to say this is actually, we're addressing task 1, and this is going to relate to this particular OKR. Let's just mention this. Let's just sync this block here. Okay, and that's going to live right here. If you don't want to see this entirely, there's a reason why I'm doing it as sync block like this. Objective, and we'll put this in an accordion. And then we can make this go away if we don't want to see it, and we can just do the task details here, description, and all the rest of the details, however you want to structure your task. Now, one of the benefits of these synced blocks in Notion is the ability to see where this block is also being edited. And so you can see where this block lives, and you can see that it is connected to this task. However, maybe this is connected, this objective is being worked on in multiple tasks. So if you paste this synced block across multiple tasks, you'll be able to see that here. So it's another way of using the synced block feature to help increase transparency across your team and across the entire company. Let's go back to the OKR Writing Toolkit template page. And we can just go down here to the final section. Also, personal OKR tracking is very similar. You can just click this button if you need to. Obviously, you probably have more than one person on your team, and it's as easy as just clicking a button to add a new person. Don't need to do that right now. One slight difference I just wanted to mention about the personal tracking is that because personal OKRs are personal, the tracking is done directly on the OKR template itself. So there's no really reason to keep this separate. This is probably something that would be done right here with between a manager and a direct report. And so again, very similar to the team page. It's just the OKR scoring is directly on the OKR writing part of the template. And here we have just some bonus resources that I've included. Let me just scroll down here. I've included I mentioned the High Five Mondays. You can call it something else. I just wanted to include one example. Something here. This is an illustration I did. This is a deliberately silly recognition certificate. I don't think these, in my personal opinion, these don't need to be very serious. These can be playful, and this is just my way of trying to facilitate that. Again, if you have a better idea or another way you'd like to present this, please go right ahead. This is the validated learning cycle as mentioned in the Lean Startup methodology. I understand that maybe some people have different opinions about the Lean Startup methodology, but the build, measure, learn cycle, I think, is a useful heuristic or mental model to help guide the way a team thinks about placing bets and running experiments. And so I've included that infographic here as a help for when people go into those meetings and are discussing about what they want to do and what they want to prioritize. Here above is a pitch template, very, very simple one that uses this structure of build, measure, learn. And the way I suggest that you structure the hypothesis is you say, if we take a specific action, we would expect to see a particular measurable result. And this assumption is based on such and such research or a particular argument for that. And then there's a basic ICE score. Probably some of you have already seen this before. You estimate the impact of an idea, the confidence in your ability to reach the desired result, and the effort it would take to execute it. And then you create an average here. This is a very, very simple pitch template that you could use or not use. And then this pitch template is very similar, but a little more complex, has a few more sections in it. And this is taken from ShapeUp. ShapeUp is the project management system from 37 Signals. And what they do, well, they do something a little different. Most teams will decide on the solution that they want to execute on. Then they will build a scope and a budget around the desired solution. They invert that. They say the timeline is fixed and the scope is variable. And so I've included an opportunity here to define the problem in a little more detail than over here. If you want to include this here, you can obviously copy and paste this section to this part of the template. But here, what 37 Signals calls this fixed scope approach, they refer to it as appetite. So basically, my understanding was they define the solution based on the pain of the problem. So the question they seem to ask themselves is, how much time is it worth investing in solving this problem? They don't become married to the solution. They say, this problem causes a certain amount of pain. Therefore, how much time are we willing to sacrifice in attempting to alleviate this pain? And so they have different bets or different cycles. So a 2-week investment, a 4-week investment, or more than 4 weeks. And then here is a similar estimating the impact of the solution. And then here, these two areas, there's some overlap here, but rabbit holes and no-goes. A rabbit hole is a part of the project that you've decided, yes, we want to do this, but here's the limit. We're not going to go beyond this part. So maybe you're building a prototype, but you're already committing to not building a high fidelity prototype, something low fidelity. Or maybe you want to have a working HTML version of a website, but you're not going to invest too much time in making the CSS completely perfect or something like that. And then there are no-goes, things that you think some people, some stakeholders involved with the project or connected to the project might request. Maybe there's some shiny new object and you're stating from the outset, no, we're not doing that this time. So these are things you're definitely not doing, and these are things that you are doing, but you just want to make sure you don't let yourself get sucked into a rabbit hole and then blow out the scope on this particular bet or pitch. So anyway, that is my very quick, or maybe not so quick, overview of the OKR Writing Toolkit. I hope this is helpful for you and your team. If you have any questions, again, my email is all the way down here. You can shoot me a message or connect with me on either of these platforms, on X or LinkedIn, and I'll do my best to clarify it. I'm assuming I'll probably have to do a version 2 of this explanation video. So feel free to let me know if anything is unclear, and I'll do my very best to correct it. Thanks a lot, and I wish you and your team the best of luck.